So we're here to solve the Cipher snake by Serkan. It actually has a really fun theme. You'll see the word cipher is at the top and the word snake is on the right, and so it's sort of a self-referential puzzle, and that the variation style are the main clues that are visible in the grid. And what I see just from seeing those words cipher snake, there are only these letters E in common, so there are 10 total letters in the set, which means one of these outside clues is a 0. It's pretty quick at the start to see none of these columns which are anywhere near, basically between any circle which is part of the snake. So the second column over to here, between these points on the left, right, and up, down, none of these clues can be zeros. And so the only clues that could be zeros are C or S. C is a part of the snake and it's a single digit value, and there's no part of the snake that's value 0. So one of the first things many people will do in the grid is mark that S is 0, and as a consequence, this puzzle is actually 11 cells wide and 10 cells tall, so you can just get rid of this at the start. A big thing to do in cipher snake puzzles, particularly before you even assign the clues, is sometimes to get a sense of small versus large, and the easiest way that often starts, we're actually lucky here, it looks like we have 4 different values for 2-digit clues. All the letters that are the start of a 2-digit clue have to be between 1 and 4, and 1 and 4 are fairly small numbers. So what I will do is mark in the set A, I, K, P, the clues that I can in yellow. I don't know if this will be super helpful. I'm just trying something different for this video. And the remaining values then end up being large, and so I've got to mark a few more here. This and this. And it's not that you need to ever do the shading or highlighting, but I think it's something that will help people see what's going on, is that you should think about times when these clues connect, and we can do the same up here, making it so none of the letters are visible anymore. Maybe you can still see them. The places in the grid where, like for instance, take these 2 clues, the AP and the IC at the start. It feels pretty natural that these connect, and it feels natural when they connect. We'll get to this later, sort of exactly that they do connect, but it's not the case that A is smaller than I and these connect, because we sort of are turning over. If this were, let's say this were 22 and this were 30 something, 22 connecting to 30 something, where this is 35 or 36 or 37 or 38 or 39, because the last digit is large, is not the way it's going to go. So it's more natural that I is smaller than A. In the same sense down here, like this P into this, like the snake is progressing as we go over here. There are 2 things that really stand out though when you mark these cells. The first is right away the C and H are pretty large single digit values, and we know that they're at least 3 away. The thing to keep in mind in every snake puzzle is that when you have some numbered spots, is that the potential deltas or changes between the lengths of cells between the spots will always be going up by increments of 2. They'll always be maintaining parity. So if the smallest way to connect C with H is 3 cells, that's a straight connection. The next smallest would be something like this, which is 5 cells. The next would be something that's like this, which is 7 cells. And that's 7 cells regardless of which way you sort of deflect the snake out. If you come like this, it's still 7 cells. And so C and H are 3 or 5 or 7 or 9 or an odd number of cells apart, at least 3 apart. And there's not larger than a 4-digit gap between 5 and 9 when these are both very large digits, 5 or larger. And so we can say at the start even that C and H directly connect, and CH have to be in a 5, 6, 8, 9 space. Neither of them can be 7. A thing to recognize when we do that is that it's going to place some limitations on some of these other clues that are using C's and H's. And this is the other thing, besides just saying these are large, I wanted to point out. The other thing I want to point out is every one of these double-digit clues, each letter, while there are these 2 ones that are small, small, every one of the letters has a small, large. And knowing that one of these has to be a 4, whichever one is a 4, the remaining cell is going to be the 45. So if I were 4, and we'll show quickly it's not, IC would be 45. And if P were 4, PH would be 45. I actually don't know if in the written instructions for this puzzle it specified that the end of the snake is one of the circled cells, but it's a consequence of shading this as small and large that we know one of the cells is exactly the end of the snake. And it's going to be one of these 4 points, which is a yellow followed by a blue. And with that as some preamble, let's now actually go to what's probably the key part of the puzzle, which is just assigning which of IAKP are working in some order. And the simplest way to probably go about that is to start by just identifying which of them can be 1. And the reason that's an important thing to look at is that each of these is also reflected in the outside clues. And so any of these clues that are 1 are going to cause issues. So let's take an example like A equals 1. If A equals 1, just because of the outside clue, this is now a line in the grid that we can only cross once. But we're going to be crossing from single digits to these A spots, which are going to be in the 10s, and then back to the rest of the snake to get to the 20s, 30s, 40s. And so you can't have A be 1 and also get the start of the snake through the middle of the snake through to the end of the snake across this more than a single time. So if I just let me mark another AIKP here to be for the equals 1 row, A is not possible. Similarly, if P were 1, same kind of thinking as A is 1. Both of these are now in the 10s. This single digit start of the snake is going to connect up to these. It crosses this line, and now this cell, which is going to be 15 or higher, got to come back to the 20s and 30s, and that's just not going to work. So P is not equal to 1. We'll look quickly at K equals 1, and if K equals 1, we've got the snake starting here, it gets to here. This will be 30, 40, and this will be 20. That seems possible. If I were 1, this column is going to be critical. So the snake starts here, it gets up to this cell. We don't yet know which of these are 20, 30, 40, but an important thing to note is that we're not crossing this line more than once, and C is a large number, so the snake is going to have to come like this and then come up to fill some large number of cells, but not come back. And where's the end of the snake then? We said the end of the snake was one of these, and the end of the snake is not in the first column. So I being 1 actually is going to limit our ability to touch the cell, but then come back to some other cell, which is the end of the snake. And this can't be the end of the snake because this is not a 0. If this were the end of the snake, we could do everything else we want here, but this clue would break. So K is 1 is what we actually have learned. And we can then mark that a little bit in the grid. And if K is 1, the consequence we'd say is these have to be 3 and 4. So P is 2. We've got to take care of every cell down here before we cross this line. So P is 2 is the next digit we learn. Mark that up here. Now I got a question of which is 3 or 4. And we talked before about with this being now actually something like 32 or 42, this is 30 large or 40 large. If this is 32 and this is 45, how are those going to come together? Knowing that we've got small large with small small, it's more likely that this is less than that, and that's now actually something we can know for sure. So we get 45. There's some different values we can now put in. Got a 3, got a 4, got a 5. Can mark those over to the side of the grid so we have this specified out. This is going to be 21. We now have a little bit of connectivity we can make. 44 and 43 are going to come straight across. And recognizing there's still a line here that we only can cross one time, these two cells have to connect before we come down to this fourthmost row. And any too wide space is going to have a very constrained forcing value for what this cell is. You could be 41, 40, 39. You could be coming down here 41, 40, 39. All paths of the snake are going to make this cell into a 9. And that makes C equal to 9, and where H was 3 values away, we get that H is 6. We don't yet know N or R, but they're going to be some value that is 7 or 8. And I think the key deduction we just got, whenever you get a large extreme, the same way 0 is pretty extreme, a 9 value as a snake clue is pretty extreme. There are 10 cells left in this whole column that could be used by the snake. This corner cell looks highly doubtful, given that taking the cell, the snake's going to come up and across and then connect back to this. And so at this stage, we actually know that these 9 cells are fully used. They're also where the snake is going to be coming from the 20s into the 30s. So I'll just go ahead and write the values coming up. It's got to be a straight shot to get us all the way to the top here. 35, it's got to turn immediately and continue to be a valid snake shape. It can't do a quick turn back on itself. We've taken the one cell that's going to be in this whole row. There are 3 cells to still take here and 2 in the next column over, and so one thing to see up top is that this 37 is not going to be coming straight down because the one extra cell to take is coming from the bottom. So actually up top, just based on this clue, we know this, and that finishes the snake up top. It tells us N is 8 and R is 7. Down here, we still have to take one more cell, so that's 25. It's going to efficiently come across, look like this. It looks like now we get to another interesting part that's true in snake puzzles in general, but thinking about this, we've now effectively made an edge of the grid. At the start of any puzzle, you should recognize that on a boundary of the grid, anytime the snake comes to it, it takes at least 3 cells. And the thinking now, we've got a new boundary here. This circled cell here has to have a 3-cell path for what it's doing, and it can't really take sort of more cells than that, but there's absolutely 2 more cells that will be connect immediately near this snake piece, and the total value of cells in this column is 6, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the grid, and if 2 cells more immediately around this, that says the 23 can't come up. If the 23 came up, it would now just leave 1 more cell immediately near the snake. The snake would have to come out, and the snake could come up, but then that would have to turn back on itself, and that's no good. So at this stage, we know that the snake is taking 2 more cells here, and it's coming from 15 whenever it takes them. And knowing it's taking 2 cells, you can ask for a cell like this, does it take these 3 cells? That's 16, 17, 18, 21, 18 to 21 is no good. And so what we actually know is that one of these cells, we don't know which of them yet, is going to be used by the snake. And 14 is a good fit here. Whichever of these gets used, 2 more cells, either these 2 cells or these 2 cells are going to be taken. The snake's going to come like this or like this. There's 1, 2, 3, and a total of 5 left. So the remaining 2 cells of the snake are going to be coming from this piece coming in and out, is what it looks like. So the 20 comes over to here as a necessary extension. 15 to 20 is as far away as it can go. The snuggest path directly connects them, so the 20 can't go any further to the right. It's got to start to connect up here, and so we'll just mark some of what that means. Some of what it means is this starts to come over to the left. We're now at a spot where there are 2 pretty clear options for what comes in here, but the horizontal clue is going to probably close out the grid. There are 4 cells already marked in this row, and if we took 13 here and 12 there, we get up to 6, and that's no good. So just shifting our frame of reference, we get something like this. There are 5 cells in this column, so we've got to mark this. There are 7 cells here. All of these are fulfilled. We're now still stuck where we haven't yet gotten 5 cells here, and this is looks like a really fun end to the puzzle. This almost end of the snake, we've gotten as far as 6. There's nothing else to get us, or lower value in the snake. Has to come back up to here, and so where there are tons and tons of ends, except for this constraint. This one constraint forces a unique finish. And this is the full shape of the snake from start to finish. So this snake week is always a hard week. While you can do every single one of the puzzles in this week logically, some trial and error, some path intuition helps in different places. And I think one reason to have highlighted the Cipher snake is it's hard enough and the clues are hidden enough at the start of the puzzle. You really do have to take some features of snake puzzles in mind. The parity of distances between clues, the sets of clues which are going to be lower value versus higher value, where you can have low, like a 0 value clue, where you can have a 1 value clue. Sometimes things like the Cipher snake will teach you how to think about snake puzzles as a whole, even when you have all the clues at the start, and which clues are very important, how large clues work, other things like that. So hope you learn a little bit about Cipher snake. Hope you learn a little bit about whether it's easy to see or not, sort of the use of small versus large values to be thinking about things. The small versus large helps a lot here in recognizing that the second digit, the leading digit of this number is probably lower than the leading digit of that number, because this is something large connecting to something small, unless the snake really did a whole lot of dodging of itself up here. And the same way, knowing both of these are large numbers, 5 or higher, means that they need to have a straight path. Those are all things that will get you started. And that's a way to think, like, even before you assign what these letters are, to kind of have the letters look to you like colors, at least extremes of the number space from 0 to 4 and 5 to 9. That can help you in some sense get a feel for what connects and how. So with that as a little bit of guidance on snake puzzles, we'll see you all again soon.